Where would you like to see Star Wars go in the next 5 to 10 years?
You were talking about Star Wars almost being sacred, our last episode. And to me, it's that. Like, you know, there's some traditions in Star Wars that I think should always exist. And one of the things that we touched base on last episode too is it probably gets really hard as someone who's making Star Wars content to pay attention to every single conversation that's been had that Star Wars fans break down, you know, on a minute level. So I think it'd be really interesting for them to get into some of the what's considered Legends content. Right now, there's this huge push and almost this kind of like Marvel's vibe where it's just like superheroes and huge scales, which is actually one of the reasons why I didn't like the last movie, the 9th movie. It's just because the scale was just ridiculous.
So I have to interrupt you real quick. So we went from Death Star, one giant ball that could blow up one giant planet.
Yeah.
We upgraded to Starkiller Base, which was one giant ball that could kill several giant planets. Then we upgraded from there to the what do they call it? The something fleet, the final order. Okay.
Oh yeah.
To the final order, which was a fleet of small star destroyers that could all destroy one giant planet. So what is the next evolution of Kathleen Kennedy's planet killing weapon?
No, I know. And literally every single like star destroyer that came out of the surface of what planet is it? Exegol. When I saw, I don't know how many of them, 10,000 star destroyers, all with huge guns strapped on the bottom of them. Like, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And
we strangely phallic weapons hanging from the bottom of the ship.
Yeah, it was like, can you be surprised that people are throwing their full sodas into the screen?
True story. The very first time that I saw Rise of Skywalker, I was angry. I was watching it with my brother-in-law. And I'm literally sitting there and I'm seething. Like, I'm kind of just sitting in the theater just like, you got it. And I keep seeing Andy, my brother, like look over at me, just like check on me and see if I'm okay. And like literally I'm waiting for the final credits so I can get up and storm out of the theater. And of course there's like one final punch in the gut. It's like my name is Rey Skywalker.
Oh, I know.
Like, and like literally I'm seething mad. And some dude like one row in front of me just gets up and just takes a thirst buster and just hurls it, and it like hits the screen and there's just like soda dripping down, and a bunch of people in the theater are like, yeah.
So my point is just like there's this huge like massive scale vibe that they are trying to push Star Wars into, which just doesn't make sense for the era. Now, granted though, if you want to go into maybe the High Republic era, that actually might make sense. There's thousands of Jedi that can be doing superhero stuff all across the galaxy. Like if Disney wants to do that, fine, go ahead. But it just didn't make really any sense in the era of Star Wars that we're in. So I'd like to see them, if they want to go huge scale, get out of the era, preserve what is Star Wars, the original Star Wars, where it makes sense for that technology and that limitation, which they've completely surpassed. So switching eras would be cool. Dude, I know you're a big Bane nerd. I'd love to see Bane be on screen. I mean, not just from like a Rebel standpoint. I mean, I'd love to see a movie about Bane. It'd be so cool.
So to me, that is the clear and obvious answer to all of Kathleen Kennedy's problems. And so I wanted to read this quote from Kathleen Kennedy because it's a direct reference to basically this concept of her getting trapped in this storyline. So she goes, this was in an interview for Vanity Fair. She says, staying within the construct of George Lucas's storytelling to keep chipping away at that, I think that would be wrong. It is our job to step away now, but still have a connection to the mythology that George created. Funny that she learned that lesson now after, basically just jumping the gun and disregarding any sort of just, methodical approach when she first got the position. But, the way that I look at it, because we've seen this with the High Republic. So again, we're going to talk about High Republic in a little bit. We'll try not to spoil too much, but in the High Republic, there is no clearly defined, at least through the first 3 books, there is no clearly defined dark side character. So they are very clearly trying to change the dynamic of darkness versus light, which I think is even though I enjoyed the High Republic, I think it's a fundamentally flawed concept to use going into a new Star Wars trilogy if they were to make a movie. And the main reason why I feel that way is because the issue is not the reason why the movies flopped has nothing to do with the dark side light side concept. As a matter of fact, I would argue the Kylo Ren Rey dynamic was the one good thing about that movie.
Totally agree. Yeah, I really liked
Kylo Ren
Rey.
was an excellent character.
Yeah.
The lightsaber battle on the salvaged parts of the Death Star over the ocean was arguably the coolest scene in the entire movie.
Incredible.
All the Luke Kylo Ren stuff. I mean, you can quibble about this force dynamics of the projection, but that was awesome. Like there were the flaws within the Star Wars sequel trilogy had nothing to do with the dark side versus the light. They had everything to do with disregarding existing plot points and cheesy scale, you know? And so
and light speed skipping.
But exactly. But like if your issue is like you think you can't get away with the single dark Jedi against the Jedi Order dynamic, then ditch that. And the easy answer is, and it doesn't necessarily have to be Bane. I think, one of these days we're going to do an episode that focuses on Bane because I think he's easily the most interesting character in the entire Star Wars universe, in my opinion. And those books are arguably my favorite Star Wars content that I've ever consumed.
Yeah, Bane is like the George Washington of Sith.
Yeah, exactly. He's literally like the founder. He's the founding father of the Sith.
Right.
So I would love to do that for them to do that. But regardless, to me, that's the dynamic that you can easily switch to. Like instead of focusing on, hey, this is our singular dark Jedi like Darth Sidious or Darth Vader or Kylo Ren or whoever it is, go back to the era when there were hundreds of Sith.
Yeah.
That's an easy, clean switch up.
Yeah.
Not to mention the entire dynamic of the Sith when they were numerous was super interesting. But to me, so what I would like to see them do is go way back in time and focus on the early ages of the Jedi versus the early ages of the Sith. And most importantly, what'd be really cool about that, because one of the things the Darth Bane series focuses on is the idea of the demilitarization of the Jedi through what was called the Ruusan Reformations. Essentially, on the same day that the Sith were extinct because of Bane, on that day, the people within the Jedi Order, as well as politicians, started pushing for the demilitarization of the Jedi because they thought that was part of the reason why the Jedi and Sith were constantly at war, was the Jedi were too militaristic. And
they had numbers, and they just were trying to
it wasn't just
supersede
numbers,
each other.
Like they literally, like the Jedi had like fleets of ships. They wore armor when they went out. Like they were literally like
soldiers.
They were soldiers. The Jedi were soldiers,
which is not the function.
Which was never intended to be the function of the Jedi. And so, it was intended to be essentially like a byproduct of the fact that the Sith and the Jedi were constantly fighting against each other. And then it was like, hey, the Sith are gone. We don't need you to be soldiers anymore.
Right.
And that was so. My thing is, you can go back in time past that kind of like, that schism or whatever you want to call it, that change in the way things were. If you go pre that, then you can stay within the dynamics of good versus evil while also having the all of the cool things and the fanfare that comes with Sith versus Jedi.
Yeah, I totally agree.